Hinata watched with a blank look as Naruto and the third continued their staring contest. At this point, it had been 5 minutes, and neither of them were backing down. Hiruzen had just revealed that he was retiring. Of course, Naruto did not like the idea as much as Hinata thought he would. The man was old, older than most shinobi were ever able to reach. He had seen all 3 great shinobi wars and lived to see the death of his teacher, Tobirama, and his successor, Minato. He deserved the chance to relax for the last of his years. Finally, Naruto was the one to speak. I guess you do deserve a vacation. Still, I am happy for you, old man. Hiruzen huffed. Anyways, since I'm stepping down, I've named my successor. Is it Tsunade the Slug Princess? Hiruzen paused. How did you know? Naruto crossed his arms. Well, Jiraiya has a spy network to deal with. No one else in the village is strong, respected, or trustworthy enough to take the position, except maybe Kakashi. But he doesn't seem the type to be Hokage. That leaves Tsunade, who despite leaving the village, is still technically a leaf shinobi. The only problem being that she would have to be persuaded to return. Hiruzen chuckled. Fair enough. Let me guess, Jiraiya chimed in. You want me to find Tsunade and bring her back? That is correct. Jiraiya ran his hand through his hair. Great. And just when I thought I could get some time to train with these brats. Well, how about we go with you? Hinata suggested. Yeah, Naruto exclaimed. After all, you might need me to punch some sense into that old lady. Seriously, do you have a death wish, kid? Jiraiya asked. You may be tough, but Tsunade is no joke. One punch from her and even the fox will have a tough time healing your injuries. Naruto waved off the comment. Just tell me when we leave. Hiruzen sighed. I will give you information on Tsunade's whereabouts. After that, you may leave tomorrow. Naruto and Hinata nodded. He placed his hand on his girlfriend and vanished in a yellow flash. The 2 adults would have to start getting used to the flying Raijin being used. Jiraiya turned back to his teacher. Are you sure Tsunade will accept the position? Honestly, I don't know. But perhaps seeing Naruto would change her mind like he said. Remember that she and Kushina were close. Jiraiya nodded. The 2 women could have been considered siblings, as Tsunade was part Uzumaki. They spent a lot of time together when she was in the village. Kushina was the person who kept Tsunade in the village after all the other pain she had went through. But when she found out Kushina died during the Ninetales attack, her mind snapped, and she had not stepped foot in the village since. Hiruzen took in a deep breath of his pipe. She has gone through a lot of loss. I am not sure if she is willing to deal with that again. Even so, she is the only one I can trust to take my place. Naruto, Hinata, and Jiraiya were silently walking down a dirt path leading into the village Tsunade was recently seen in. They had been walking for 2 days, and each of them had been focused on other things. Jiraiya was focusing on the mission at hand. Hinata was busy scribbling in her notebook on how she wanted hers and Naruto's vests to be customized. Until then, they were wearing their regular vests over top their standard outfits. Naruto was busy scratching symbols onto a spare kunai. They were modified versions of the Hiraishin marker that he was attempting to make. He found out that his father's marker was different than the one inside the scroll of sealing created by Tobirama. When he asked Jiraiya about it, he said that each person had their own Hiraishin seal that worked best with their chakra. A person could use any marker they were able to sense, but the chakra cost would be greater. For that reason, Naruto was making his own. Every few minutes he would throw the blade into the air and flash to it. Over the past day, he had cut down the needed chakra by a fourth. It was progress, but nowhere near what he wanted. "Here we are," Jiraiya announced, making the others look up. "We will be staying in this village tonight. You guys get a hotel room. I'm going to go look for some information." "You mean hang out with women, don't you?" Hinata corrected. Jiraiya giggled perversely before walking off. Naruto and Hinata shrugged. No matter how hard they tried, Jiraiya would always be the same. The two continued on to the nearest hotel. As they walked through the busy streets, Kurama let out a growl inside Naruto. Naruto was about to ask what was up, but was interrupted by the fox, who said, "Keep walking." Naruto did as he was instructed, pulling Hinata closer. She looked up at him with her white gaze. Before she knew it, she was standing in front of Kurama and Naruto. "What is going on?" "I sense 2 huge chakra signatures nearby. One of them is filled with hatred." Naruto nodded. "I will keep a lookout with your negative emotion sensing. I may need your power if they are that strong." Kurama nodded. Naruto and Hinata returned to the real world, with Hinata tripping on her own foot from being sucked in. Naruto chuckled while steadying her, and they continued to act as if nothing was wrong. In truth, Naruto was searching the town for the negativity Kurama had sensed. Sure enough, it was there, a few blocks behind them, up on one of the rooftops. He squeezed his girlfriend's hand, signaling he found them. A few minutes later, once they had gotten into their hotel room, Hinata activated her Byakugan, scanning the area. "I found them. 2 men, each wearing black cloaks with red clouds. They both have large amounts of chakra, with the taller man having more than you?" "Red clouds. I thought Jiraiya said they were not on the move yet." "It would seem he was wrong," Hinata said nervously. She'd almost forgotten the feeling. Naruto nodded, quickly thinking up a strategy. "Can you identify them?" Hinata nodded and quickly described their features. Both recognized them from the bingo book. After a few seconds of thinking, Naruto smirked. He made a single shadow clone that vanished from view, headed towards Jiraiya. He decided not to have his clone use the Flying Raijin, as it would use up more chakra, which he had already used a lot of working on his new Hiraishin on the way here. A few moments later, they heard a knock on the door. Hinata sat at the foot of the bed, while Naruto went to open the door. "Finally got back, pervy sage." He opened the door to see 2 men that wore black cloaks with red clouds. They both wore shinobi headbands, with their symbols being cut through the center. One from the hidden mist, one from the hidden leaf. The larger of the 2 had blue skin and hair, with 3 black markings under his small, white eyes. On his back he carried a large sword covered in bandages. The other had long black hair, his eyes staring directly into Naruto's soul. The Sharingan. "You're not pervy sage, and you're definitely not room service. So, this is the brat we were sent to get? And look, Itachi, he's a Jonin. Looks like the information we got was correct," the blue man said. "And look behind him. His girlfriend is tuning too." Itachi spoke, his Sharingan spinning. "Naruto Uzumaki, you are to come with us. Do so willingly, and the girl will not be injured." Naruto scratched his head. "Yeah, sorry, Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hoshigaki. But I'm afraid I have no interest of being taken away by some Akatsuki members." "You know of our organization?" Itachi asked. "Enough to know that I don't want to deal with you unless I must. Of course, you could always try to take me by force." Kisame bared his shark-like teeth. "Sounds like the Jinchuriki wishes to get one of his limbs chopped off." Hinata grinned. "And what makes you think the Nine-Tails will not just regenerate his limb?" Kisame grunted in annoyance. Enough, Kisame, Itachi stated in his stoic voice. I will deal with this. Itachi's Sharingan suddenly morphed into a new pattern. Instead of 3 tomos, his eyes now showed a 3-bladed shuriken. They spun in an enticing pattern. The Mangekyo Sharingan, Hinata breathed out in surprise and awe. Now, come quietly, Naruto Uzumaki. Tsukiyomi. Genjutsu World. Naruto's eyes flew open as he stood in a black and white field with a blood-red sky above him. It took him only a second to realize that Itachi had used his ultimate Genjutsu, granted to him by the Mangekyo Sharingan. As far as he knew, no human was able to break the illusion. He turned to see Itachi standing before him. You will now suffer 3 days of immense torture and pain. Prepare yourself. I don't think so, Itachi, Naruto responded with a smirk. Itachi stopped his advance as he felt another presence inside the Genjutsu. He whipped around to see the large form of the Nine-Tails standing before him. How is this possible? Itachi asked, his voice holding a barely noticeable amount of fear and confusion. The fox is immune to your Genjutsu. By extension, he can free me of it whenever I please. But before that, I wish to talk. Itachi turns back to the boy, who had a genuine look of pain in his gaze. Why, Itachi? Why did you kill the Uchiha clan? To test the limits of my power, he responded blankly. Wrong answer, Naruto retorted, making Itachi stiffen. I know you had orders from the village elders to eliminate them. Itachi remained stoic. And how would you know this? Old man Hokage told me. Why? I had my suspicions at first. After reading your profile, I found it hard to believe a shinobi of your rank and strength would kill his clan just to see how strong he was. Especially since you left your brother as the only survivor. After that, I asked the Hokage. Normally he wouldn't tell me or anyone else. But after Kurama gave him a little scare, he confessed the bare minimum of information. All I know is that you were ordered by Danzo and the elders because there was no other choice. I am surprised that the Hokage would give you any information at all, no matter how incorrect it is. Itachi mused. Don't continue trying to lie to me, Itachi. The fox gives me the power to sense negativity, even in this world. Lying falls under that category. Itachi's Mangekyo narrowed. He looked back at the fox, who continued his savage grin, prepared to break the Genjutsu if Itachi tried anything. For the first time, in a long time, Itachi let a smile grace his lips. Looks like there's no use hiding it anymore. I must commend you. No one has been able to see through me, not even the likes of Orochimaru. Orochimaru? Naruto repeated in suspicion. Itachi nodded. He joined the Akatsuki briefly. In the end, he was only after my Sharingan. He failed to obtain them, of course. So, I assume you left your brother Sasuke alive to make sure your clan lived on. Yes, it was the only way I would go through with killing the rest of my clan. I told him before I left that he must become strong enough to defeat me if he ever wished to avenge his clan. Of course, there are other reasons, but I would prefer to keep them hidden for now. I'm sure you must be wondering why the council even considered wiping out my clan. Naruto nodded. I think I have an answer for that. I read some of the old papers from around that time. The Uchiha had been growing restless. After the Nine-Tails attack, they were forced to the outskirts of the village. Since the Sharingan was the only power Besides the wood style that could restrain tailed beasts, the Uchiha were under suspicion of causing the whole thing. Correct, Itachi verified. I knew that no one in the clan did such a thing. Even so, my clan started to plot a coup d'etat. They relied on me to gather information since I was a part of the Anbu. I, unlike the others, chose to side with the village. One other did as well. His name was Shisui Uchiha. I know that name, Naruto said in a thinking pose. He snapped his fingers and continued. He was hailed as the greatest user of the body flicker technique, and one of the few with the Mangekyo Sharingan. Yes, Itachi said somberly. His Mangekyo gave him the power of Koto Amatsu Kami, widely considered the ultimate genjutsu. Without going into details, you could see it as a sort of mind control. The original plan was to have Shisui use Koto Amatsu Kami on my father, Fugaku, the leader of our clan. Unfortunately, Danzo was looking for a way to get rid of the clan, and so he stole one of Shisui's eyes. Before dying, he gave the other to me. Because of this, the only other option was the massacre. After the deed was done, I asked that I be declared a rogue ninja by Hiruzen. I then joined the Akatsuki so that I could act as a spy. Dangerous work, Naruto praised. As for Danzo, taking Shisui's eye explains the unusual chakra signature coming from his bandaged eye Hinata had seen with her Byakugan. He must have taken the Mangekyo for his own purposes. I would assume he did the same with the rest of your people. Yes, Itachi sighed heavily, letting out the pent-up feelings he had kept hidden for the last few years. But, enough about me. Your Hyuga friend must be this Hinata you mentioned. I thought she was the heir of her clan. She was. Long story short, she got close to me and paid the price. After that, we started dating, lived together since. She became Chunin, and I became Special Jonin after the last exams. Impressive, Itachi praised. Though, I am surprised you waited for the exams. Your skills speak for themselves. Naruto huffed happily. We had to make sure we were strong enough to protect ourselves. We aren't all able to get Anbu rank before we're even old enough to leave the academy. Besides, your brother's already mad enough that I got promoted at all, while he is stuck still being restricted Chunin. Itachi nodded solemnly. While I would like to talk more, the Tsukiyomi takes an enormous strain on my body. It would be wise if you had the Nine Tails release you. Agreed. But first, Naruto smirked. We gotta make our performance look good. Kisame was surprised when his partner collapsed, clutching his head. The Jinchuriki brat remained unfazed, and a massive chakra surge was coming from him. What's happened, Itachi? The Uchiha shakily responded. He used the Nine Tails to overwhelm my genjutsu. Kisame grinned. That meant he got to play with the kid. He was a censor, and even though the kid had already used a decent amount of chakra, he knew that the kid had almost as much as he did. He brought his giant blade off his back and aimed at the blonde. Looks like I get to fight you, shark face, Naruto snarled. He threw a hail of kunai at the two. Itachi managed to body flicker down the hall. Kisame brought his sword up, making them bounce off harmlessly. When he brought his blade down, he felt a foot hit him square in the face, slamming him against the wall. Once he hit the wall, Hinata charged at him, ready to disable his chakra network. She let out a cry of pain and jumped back. Her hand was covered in cuts. Her strike had landed on Kisame's now exposed sword. Instead of a single edge, it seemed to be made of blue scales. This is my blade, Samehada. As you can see, it likes to shred its opponent. Hinata jumped back to heal her wounds, while Naruto sent another hail of kunai, now covered in lightning. Kisame knocked them away harmlessly, and the lightning appeared to be sucked into Samehada. Just as his entry in the bingo book said, his sword does have the ability to absorb chakra, Naruto thought. Couple that with the danger of the blade itself, and Kisame is going to be one tough opponent. I finally found you. Everyone present turned to look down the hall to see a black-haired boy standing there, Sharingan glaring with uncontrollable rage at Itachi, who had risen to his feet. Damn it, Sasuke, Naruto cursed. You just had to come out here and get in the way. I have been waiting for this moment, Sasuke growled, lightning dancing in his palm. This is the day I kill you. Sasuke ran towards his brother, his Chidori tearing up the wall. And, just as he was about to stab his brother, Itachi easily grabbed his arm. With a simple display of strength, Itachi snapped his wrist. Sasuke screamed in pain and grunted as he was pressed up against the wall by the throat. You are still too weak, little brother. You are not yet strong enough to avenge the clan. Itachi proceeded to punch and kick his brother in the stomach, making him wheeze in pain. He was about to use his Sharingan when he had to dodge the blade of a large toad that had appeared. He blocked a strike sent by Jiraiya. The toad grabbed the limp form of Sasuke, who tried to break free of its hold. Pervy Sage, take these guys out of here. We don't want the building getting destroyed. Jiraiya acknowledged Naruto's words. He dodged a swing from Itachi and slammed his hand on the floor. Summoning Jutsu! A dark red toad around Jiraiya's height popped into existence. The toad sent its large tongue to trap Kisame and Itachi. Kisame was about to slice his bindings, but was blocked by Naruto's sword. Toad gourd prison! In a matter of seconds, the two Akatsuki members were dragged into the mouth of the toad. Once they had disappeared, Jiraiya instructed the toad. Take them 100 meters outside the town. You two go with them, he ordered his students. I will send the toad with Sasuke back to the village. He seemed pretty beat up. Naruto and Hinata nodded, following close behind the red toad as it hopped out of the window, facing towards the outskirts of the village. Once they were in the middle of a grassy field, the toad opened its mouth and spat out the two shinobi, since they were too powerful to hold captive long term. What the hell was that? Kisame asked, disgusted. They had just spent the last few minutes in a large cavern with green poison lakes and weird structures. A space-time ninjutsu, was Itachi's only reply. Perceptive, aren't you, Itachi? Naruto sneered. Now we can go all out. Naruto drew his swords and charged at Kisame, while Hinata went after Itachi. Naruto and Kisame entered a clash of blades that sent loud bangs through the field. Kisame was skilled with Samehada, but his ex-comrade Zabuza was a greater swordsman. But what Kisame lacked in refinement, he made up for in strength and chakra reserves. Samehada was the biggest problem. Its scales were dangerous to get close to, and since it could absorb chakra, his options were limited. Kisame made a downward slash, crashing into the ground. Naruto took the opportunity to throw his sword into the man's shoulder. He grunted as the blade contacted his skin, piercing his flesh. He then felt a searing pain in his wound as flames erupted from the tags on the sword handle. The blast made his arm go limp, his blade falling to the ground. Naruto went on the offensive, swinging his sword with deadly accuracy. Kisame had no choice but to abandon his prized possession. At that moment, Jiraiya arrived on the scene. After quickly digesting the battlefield, his eyes landed on the shark blade. Knowing its importance, he went to place it in a scroll. But when he reached for the handle, his hand was slashed, the handle producing spikes. almost as if it was sentient, and only Kisame was allowed to use it. Naruto saw this happen. Angry, he further pressed his attack. Despite his size, Kisame was able to dodge his strikes. He reached out with his chakra, making the tip of Samehada open its large mouth. The living blade jumped from its position and flew to Kisame. He used it to block another strike, forcing the blonde to jump back once again. Samehada allowed its wielder to draw on its power, healing his open wound. Naruto groaned in frustration. Fine. I guess I'll have to pull out the big guns. Naruto was then suddenly enveloped in an orange coat of chakra, one tail shaking behind him. He sheathed his sword. Kisame ripped the burning blade from his shoulder, tossing it to the ground. I must admit, that fire hurt a bunch, kid. Unfortunately for you, Samehada loves the taste of tailed beast chakra. Kisame dashed at Naruto, his blade ready to pierce his heart. Then, at the last moment, Naruto channeled all the orange cloak to his hands, letting him stop the blade. The chakra immediately started getting siphoned from him. Kisame grinned as he expected the boy to cry out in pain when he felt the scales of the blade. Instead, he heard Samehada screeching in agony. He jumped back a few meters, landing in the center of the stasis seals Jiraiya had placed after wrapping his hand in cloth. Kisame was frozen in place. Samehada was not giving him chakra, which confused him. All that he could tell was that his sword was in pain. What did you do, brat? Naruto smirked. Your sword is a shark, more or less. And all sea creatures hate fire. So, I gave your sword a taste of my blazing fist style. Naruto then proceeded to vanish from sight, reappearing behind the shark man, his entire body ablaze. Hell's Fire Dash. Naruto slammed his fists into Kisame's back, making him writhe in agony. The kid was right. Samehada, and him as well, hated fire chakra, and were not able to absorb it properly. After a few more hits, Kisame fell to the ground, panting heavily. Naruto did not take time to praise himself. He whipped around to see Hinata using her aqua armor to block Itachi's fireball jutsu. Itachi was clearly at an advantage, as he was able to keep her at bay. If he didn't know the Uchiha was on their side, he would have rushed in. Instead, he silently signaled for Hinata to stop her advance. She saw the signal, and pretended that one of Itachi's attacks had struck her dead on. She fell to the ground. Itachi glanced at his partner, seeing Jiraiya ready to land a finishing blow. Naruto jumped forward and pushed his teacher out of the way as Itachi appeared beside his teammate. Our mission was a failure. We cannot continue to battle with a Sannin. And for the moment, you are incapacitated. We will have other chances to take the Nine Tails, Itachi coolly stated to his injured partner. Kisame grunted. I guess that Jinchuriki boy is not half bad. Fine, let's go. Itachi gave one last look at Naruto, nodding slightly, before vanishing along with Kisame in a flock of crows. What was that for, kid? Jiraiya asked angrily. I was about to deal with the shark guy when you pushed me. As Hinata treated Jiraiya's wounds, Naruto explained his confrontation with Itachi inside his Tsukuyomi. Jiraiya was surprised, to say the least. He was skeptical, but knew that Naruto was immune to genjutsu. So, whatever he said was true. That does explain the intel I was able to find about the Akatsuki organization. It was Itachi's spy work. For the time being, we will keep this to ourselves. Naruto sighed. When we get back, I am going to give the old man a stern talking to. Even if it was not his first decision, there must have been a way to reason with the Uchiha. Jiraiya shook his head, flexing his healed palm. Those people are not easy to deal with. Just think of how your peer Sasuke acts. and multiply that by every Uchiha shinobi there was. Of course, the Uchiha civilians and a few like Shitsui and Itachi did not harbor ill will. Naruto scratched his head. Well, all we can do now is hope Itachi doesn't get discovered. Do you think we should tell Sasuke? Hinata asked. No. Itachi explained to me that he wants Sasuke to stay in the village and grow strong enough to kill him. Why? Naruto continued. He wants Sasuke to be strong enough to protect himself from the likes of Danzo. When Itachi is dead, he hopes Sasuke can lead a normal life. Sadly, Sasuke is already veering from that path. Naruto retrieved his sword, placing it back in its scabbard. Nothing we can do for now. Let's get back on the road, pervy sage. Jiraiya chuckled, standing up, following the young couple as they began back on the dirt path. Unknown location. Somewhere far away from the tiny village, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki relayed their mission to their leader. He also wore the standard black cloak with red clouds. His face was hidden by the shadows of the cavern, but he radiated power. He was not to be messed with. So, the Jinchuriki has grown more than expected. To force you two to retreat, even if you weren't taking it seriously, is a great feat. It will not happen again, Kisame promised. Samehara practically squirming from the blonde's chakra. I plan to overcome my weakness of fire. That brat will make a delicious meal for my blade. It will not happen again, because you know what will happen if you disappoint me, the leader stated with a soft but commanding tone. Our plans for the tailed beasts do not begin for another few years. Until then, we shall wait. If you like what you just heard, consider hitting the subscribe button and bell icon to get notified about new videos. If there's a part you've missed, then check out the entire playlist on screen. If you like this story, please share it with your fellow anime lovers. Any support helps a lot. That's all for now. This is Ninja Kai, disappearing in a golden flash.